Can your cell phone kill you? The question on everyone's mind after the report from the World Health Organization that cell phones are, quote, possibly carcinogenic, end quote, meaning they might cause cancer. There are no independent government tests, and the cell phone industry remains quiet. They were thought to be safe by the FCC, but not anymore. Deborah Davis is the president of the Environmental Health Trust and the author of a book called Disconnect, The Truth About Cell Phone Radiation, What the Industry Has Done to Hide It, and How to Protect Your Family. Deborah, thanks for joining us. What is it that the industry knows about cell phones that you say they're not telling us?
Well, they know that cell phones are two-way microwave radios, and that you should never hold them close to the brain or body, and that's what the fine print warnings tell us. They also know that these radio frequency signals from cell phones can damage DNA, and in animal studies show damage to the brain, liver, eyes, and skin.
Not to be naive, but if it's true what you're saying, what would it do for the cell phone companies not to tell us? And I say this because it's not the same as cigarettes, where when you find out they're dangerous, the only option is to stop. With cell phones, there are alternatives. There are things you can do to mitigate the use of having a cell phone next to your head. So why, if they know this, wouldn't they tell us?
Well, because I think there's a general sense that if you understand that you need to be careful using a cell phone, some people might decide not to use them at all. And that's why right now in Europe they're resisting the idea that you can have on-off switches very easily, which is what we really need. We need the ability to turn phones off very quickly so we can turn them on quickly.
Again, a solvable problem. Those who claim that cell phones are safe say that the sort of radiation that you're talking about that's being emitted is not dangerous and not cancer-causing. You've found other cases.
Well, as a matter of fact, the radiation from a cell phone is too weak to cause damage like X-rays do. It's called non-ionizing. But even though it's weak, it is digital and it's pulsed. And studies conducted in Europe in 12 different laboratories have shown that the weaker signal from today's modern phones can actually be more damaging than the signals from the earlier phones, because the pulsed digital signal disrupts the membranes, weakens the blood-brain barrier, and that's why it can damage DNA.
All right, one thing you point out in your book that a lot of people don't realize is that the cell phone industry is issuing warnings about this, but they're in very fine print. Take a look at this one from Research in Motion, which makes BlackBerries. It says, use hands-free operation if available, and keep the phone at least 0.98 inches from your body, including the abdomen or pregnant women and the lower abdomen of teens when the device is turned on and connected to the wireless network. So the industry is obviously aware of the effects. Why is the U.S. government, for instance, not getting more involved in putting these warnings out there and regulating it?
The government right now, as you well know, is overwhelmed with so many things to deal with. And they've taken advice that's been provided over the years from committees that have been dominated by industry. But I think those days are over, and that's why I'm really glad for the attention that you're bringing to this issue and that CNN has done a very good job on. My book, Disconnect, makes it clear. We know enough now to take simple precautions, and we don't need to stop using phones. We just need to be smarter about how we do
right, which is why I think that this can go the wrong way for the cell phone industry or the right way. If they know something, tell us, and we can change it. Unlike smoking, as you've said, we can figure out ways to use cell phones more effectively. The studies that have been conducted so far based on the adult male brain, your website states that children absorb more radiation than adults do. The reason I talk about this is because millions of kids are using cell phones. I'm guessing the penetration for kids is greater than it is for adults, and yet there is not a single peer-reviewed study looking at the dangers of cell phones in children. Why?
Because a way of looking is a way of not looking, and we've not wanted to even think about this possibility because, again, cell phone radiation is weak, so it doesn't work with the power. It works because of the erratic nature of the signal. You take a rubber band and pop it once, it's fine.
Right.
You keep popping it over and over again, eventually you'll break it, and that may be why the 3G phones look to be more dangerous than 2G phones when tested in laboratory studies.
What's the end result for those watching this right now, irrespective of what the industry does and what government does? What do you recommend people do?
I recommend they do what I do, which is to use a headset. use a speakerphone. Don't sleep with the phone on your body. For goodness sakes, don't give phones to young children to use as pacifiers. Yesterday's New York Times was full of all of the gadgets and gizmos, but think about the fact that distance is your friend. You can use a phone safely if you use it with a speakerphone, an earpiece, and don't give phones to young children as toys. It's a bad idea.
All right, good advice, Deborah Davis. Thanks for joining us.